start me on my way. But he did. I thank him for that. Bishop James Smith, his lovely wife, and this great church didn't have to invite me to share tonight in the joys of this occasion. Amen. But they did. Amen. I love you and I thank you. Amen. People who have come here from Serenity to be with me and to be with you didn't have to come. Amen. And I want them to know that I love you and I thank you. Amen. Now, before we go further, I want you to do something for me. Would you right quick hold up 2 fingers? Now, before I go further, you're going to have to know the difference in your fingers and your thumbs.
That's a doodle.
Now, I'm not going to be able to help you
That's a
if you
doodle
don't
on
know the
everybody.
difference in your tongue
Put up a thumb. That's a doodle.
and your fingers. Let me tell you why you did that. That's not your fault.
Oh, God.
We always will do what we see before we will do what we hear. And I just wanted to drop that bomb since I was flying over that territory. Now, I'm going to try and help you tonight. You know what I really appreciate? I asked man to do something else. But when I heard him say, you see these people out here, they got pencils, and they got pens, and they got notebooks. That impressed me. Because I always go everywhere I go. I either take a tape recorder with me, or take a pen or pad, because I want to know what's being said, and I want to remember what's being said. Before I go further, I don't want to get in trouble. My wife is here. Stay with you. And of course, my granddaughter is here too. Now, let's go. Y'all ready? Yes, sir. I'm going to show you now. You ain't going to forget this tonight. Now, how many of you can count to 4? Raise your hand. Now, if you can't count to 4, I can't help you. But if you can count to 4, I'm going to show you how you can do what you want and have what you want. But you have to be able to count to 4. Can you count to 1? Say 1 with me. 1. 1 is that you have to know what you want. I don't mean you have to know what your mother wants you to want, or what your father wants you to want, what your sister wants you to want, what your brother wants you to want. You have to know what you want. Everybody who's ever been successful in anything in life has counted to 4, and they, number 1, they knew what they wanted. And you got to know it like you know the back of your hand. You got to know it like you know your mother's name. You got to know it like you know your own address. You got to know it like you know your telephone number. You got to know what you want. Now, you got to know it at 2 levels. You got to know it at the conscious level, but you also got to know it at the subconscious level. Well, you may look at me and say, well, oh, I know what I want. Do you? Really? It's not as simple as you think. I got up one morning and decided to go to the grocery store, and I wanted a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread. That's all I wanted. If you had stopped me as I was going out of my front door and you had said to me, Floyd, what do you want? I would have said, I want a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk. If you had stopped me as I was getting into my car and you said, Floyd, what did you say you were going to get? I would have told you a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk. And if you stopped me as I was going into the store and said, tell me one more time, what did you say you wanted? I would have said, I told you a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk. And I came out of the store with $40 worth of groceries. I'm not the only one. Now let me tell you what happened to me. When I walked in that store, Ray Charles was sitting right over there with a can of Pepsi Cola in his hand. And this is the right one, baby. So I got some Pepsi. And Coca-Cola said, well, I've got the feeling that refreshes, and I got some Coke. And then Seal-Test said, you might want to make a float out of that Coke. Maybe you better get some ice cream. And Nabisco said, well, you ought to get some cookies too. And I kept going on. And when I got through, I came out of that store with more of what everybody else wanted me to want, and I said, I want it. So you got to know what you want. I don't mean you got to know what somebody else wants you to want. You got to know what you want. Can you count to 2?
2.
2 is you got to see yourself as already having whatever it is you want. Listen to Jesus in Mark 11 and 24. He said, if you can believe that you have received, past tense, that for which you ask, it shall be yours. Listen to the man. If you can believe that you have already received that you want, it shall be yours. You gotta see it. Now let me tell you, you look with your eyes, but you see with your mind. That's why 2 people can look at the same thing and see something totally different. So you got to see it. If you woke LeBron James up tonight at 1 o'clock, if he goes to bed at 1, tell me, King James, what do you want to do? You know what he said? I want to play basketball. Now you know how much money he makes? He makes about $30 million from the Miami Heat and far more millions than that from all of his endorsements. Yes, but he ain't playing ball because they are paying him. They're paying him because he plays ball. And when he stands there at the foul line, watch him. He doesn't just walk up there and shoot the ball. No, he's got to see it first. So he stands there, then he shoots. Because he's got to see it going in with his mind before he can shoot it in with his hand. You got to see it. You know why I came over here tonight? Because I saw myself already over here. If I had seen myself somewhere else, I would have gone somewhere else. You gotta see it.
That's good.
Can you count to 3? 3. You got to be willing to do whatever it is that you have to do in order to get what you want. Now you may not have to do it, but you got to be willing to do it. Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego didn't have to die in that fiery furnace. But they didn't have to die in the fiery furnace because they were willing to die in the fiery furnace. Daniel didn't have to die in that lion's den, but he had to be willing to die. And because he was willing to die, he didn't have to die. Abraham was willing to kill Isaac, but he didn't have to kill him, but he had to be willing to kill him. And I don't care what it is you want or want to have, you got to be willing to do whatever is necessary to get it. You may not have to do it, but you got to be willing to do it. Let me tell you a little bit about my experience. Those of you who don't know, when I wanted to get Serenity Church building, I went over to a little house on Orange Street that I was using at that time as my office. And I stayed there a week and a half. I told my wife, if anybody calls me, I don't want nobody to know where I am. I'm going to be fasting. I'm going to be praying. I didn't eat any food. I drank water with a touch of lemon, apple cider, and vinegar. That's what I had. I sipped on it. Then I put a picture of the building. At that time, it was the Church of the Nazarene. I put a picture of that building on the wall in my bathroom. I looked at it every night before I went to bed, and I looked at it every morning when I got up. I saw it before I looked at it. I saw, oh no, you know what they had out there? They had First Church of the Nazarene. That's what I was looking at, but that ain't what I saw. You're not going to get what you're looking at, you get what you see. Can I make it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Right down in Florida, near Orlando, Walt Disney and his chauffeur was riding down the road, and he said to his chauffeur, "John, look out there, look out there." He said, "What? Look out there, look out your window, look out there. What do you see out there? What's out there?" He said, "Oh, I see a swamp." Walt Disney tapped John on the shoulder and said, "Drive on." And then he sat back in the seat of that chauffeur-driven limousine and said, "John, drive on." And 9 months later, he was drawing up plans for Disney World. Now the chauffeur was the chauffeur because all the chauffeur saw was what he was looking at.
All right.
Walt Disney was Walt Disney because he wasn't just looking, he was seeing. You got to see it. Now, let me tell you the difference. I got one more. I don't have to be long to be good. I got one more. Let me see if I can make this make some sense. Now, there's a difference in the facts and the truth. You look at the facts are what you see. But the truth is what you know. I'm going to say that again. The facts are what you are looking at. But the truth is what you see. The truth is what you know. When I passed down North Lee Street, and I looked at a sign, it said, First Church of the Nazarene. The facts. But you know what the truth was? That was Serenity. Now, I was not motivated by the facts. I was motivated by the truth. Amen. Know the truth? One more. What was number one? What was number two? What was number three? But that's as far as you can go. You can know what you want. You can see yourself as already having it. And you can be willing to do whatever is necessary to get it. But then you have to ask a power that is beyond you what is necessary because you don't know. And there's no way for you to know. And God alone makes up the ways and means committed. Ain't nobody on that committee but Him. So if you want to know what's necessary for you to get what you want, you got to ask Him. He'll tell you. So, we just dedicated the building just now. White man walked into a place. I was sitting there talking to somebody else about the building across the street, but it didn't just happen. I would stand in front of that Serenity Church for 3 days, staring at that building across the street. And then I picked up the phone, found out who owned it, called them, and they came over to my office. And they sat in my conference room. And when white folk come to see me, I take them in there, and then I excuse myself and let them be nosy and just... So I said, excuse me, y'all make yourself at home. I left out, going about 10 minutes, gave them time to browse around and see all this stuff. Then I came back and I sat down, and in walked Roy Taylor. Now, I don't even know why he came over there. He comes in the door, but God knew. Watch this now. He comes in the door, he sits down, and I said, hey, how you doing? And he laughed and said, hey. He said, then he was probably 70, maybe 79 years old. And so I said to the couple that owned the building, I said, listen, I need that building. I ain't got no money, but I just want to know what we can talk about and what we can work out. And that's as far as I got. Roy Taylor jumped in it, and he said, no, before that the man said, well, we don't have, no, I said, I want you to go home and pray about it. And he said, well, we don't have to pray. Looked at his wife and said, we don't have to pray about the house, we'll give you the house. And Roy Taylor said, what do you want for that building? What do you want for that building? He said, $159,000. I ain't gonna give you $159,000. I'll give you $150,000. You get it $199. Then he looked at me and said, you want that? You want? I said, wait a minute, don't go so fast. We hadn't even been over there to look at it. So to make a long story short, we went over and looked at it, and he bought it. I think he paid maybe $140,000, $150,000. I don't think he paid quite $150,000. That was his money. He bought it. We rocked on it. He said, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna let you do. Now you can have this building. You ought to pay nothing until the 1st of January. That was in June. In January, then you can give me $700 a month. You think you can do that? I said, yeah. He said, okay. And that rocked on. We got the building. And then one day, James Wright came with him for whatever reason, and we were talking, and he looked at me and said, now, I'm going to have to check your books. I said, no, sir, you can't do that. He said, yeah, but I said, listen to me. When a white man tells me he got to check my books, he's telling me he doesn't trust me. And I'm going to trust you to do what you say you're going to do, and you have to trust me to do what I say I'm going to do. And then I shook his hand. He didn't say no more about that. Now, let me tell you this. I didn't know he was coming over there. He can't explain to you tonight why he came over there. But he came over there because God sent him over there. Because God knew what was necessary. Y'all all right?
Yes, sir.
I got one more. My wife says every time I say I got one more, it's one more after that. I always close with Jesus. Amen. Thank you so very much. He's going to open the doors. Right? We had another meeting at 7, so he's going to take care of that. Listen to this. Jesus in John 5 walked up at the pool of Bethesda, and there was a man there, 38 long years. Somebody had brought him and placed him there. And the book says that every year at the same time an angel would come down and stir the water in the pool, and whoever got into that pool first was made whole of whatever infirmity that he had. Amen. Jesus walked up to him, listen to this, and he said to him, do you want to get well? Now, he didn't ask the man that because he didn't know. He wanted to make sure he knew what he wanted. I told y'all, you got to know what you want. He said, do you want to get well? And the very first thing the man said was, well, you know what, I to listen. Every time I start in the pool, somebody else, he said, I don't want to hear nothing about it. I don't want to hear nothing about who got in front of you. I want to know, I didn't ask you why you haven't been made whole before. I want to know, do you want to be made whole now? Yes or no? Yes. I told you, you got to know what you want. The man kept hammering around, and Jesus, he never takes excuses from anybody. You know what he told him? He said, go on, pick up your bed and walk. Amen. Amen. If you know what you want, you just do it. Pick up your bed and walk. That which he had been dependent on, he became independent of. That which had been carrying him, Jesus told him to pick it up and carry it. Thank y'all. Wow. I'm through. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to teach that before I preach that. I ain't got but 3 minutes. Teach that before I preach that. I'm going to close with this. In Louisiana, in the mid-1980s, there was a slave auction. And there was this brother up on the auction block. He was 6'4". He weighed about 200 pounds. He had a strong build. His eyes were piercing. His muscles were flexing. His legs were strong. His shoulders were back. And they started auctioning him off. And he said, but I won't work. I tell you, I won't work. I won't work. I tell you, I won't work. And finally, Mr. McKinney walked up and said, come on, John. He said, but I won't work. I tell you, I won't work. I won't work. He said, oh, shut up and come on down. And he took John down, put him on the back of his wagon and drove out to his plantation. And when they got out there, John was on the back of the wagon, and Mr. McKinney walked around and said, get on down. He said, but I'm telling you, I won't work. I won't work. I'm telling you, I won't work. Shut up and get on down. So when John stepped off the back of that wagon, Mr. McKinney took the change from his ankles and from his wrist, looked at him and said, I didn't buy you to work you. I bought you to free you. And John said, well, then I'll work for you.